Compared to the last couple of years, how bad is this flu season expected to be?
Well, that's a very good question. This is always a difficult question to answer because we're not capable of really accurately predicting what's going to happen with influenza from year to year. So certainly we haven't had an increase in 2022 on what we saw in 2020 and 2021. How big this season will get remains to be seen. But the influenza is circulating and the season has started.
Obviously, there hasn't been much flu around over the last couple of years because we've all been observing those COVID-safe practices like washing our hands and physical distancing. Does that actually mean that we are more vulnerable as a population when it comes to exposure because we haven't had it?
It does, because only a third of people had vaccine in 2021. So 2/3 of people haven't been vaccinated, and also the other way of protecting the community is to have low levels of virus circulating. We haven't seen that in the last couple of years. So yes, the general population is more vulnerable to influenza in this coming year.
And on that, those concerns around vaccine fatigue, have you seen that to be the case in practice?
Certainly this year, we've had a fairly quiet or low uptake in influenza vaccination so far, but it's not too late to be vaccinated. You can still get the vaccines. They're readily available. You should think about getting vaccinated from now on. Influenza cases will pick up going into May and June. So now is a good time to be vaccinated, and it is a different situation from 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, so it matters when you time the vaccine to make sure that you have maximum protection. When is that time frame?
Look, I think the influenza vaccine for most people will give good protection for at least 6 months. So I think any time from now on is a good time to get your vaccine, and that will give you coverage through the peak of the season, which is usually June, July, August.
I wanted to get your thoughts on how the pandemic might have shifted our thinking when it comes to getting sick, because before the pandemic there was this mentality here that you just kind of soldier on even if you're a bit under the weather. Then during the pandemic it completely flipped, and even if you had the most minor symptom you had to get a test and isolate and do all of these things. Now it seems as though that people are coming out when they're sick, if they've got the all clear and don't have COVID, and they say, oh, well, don't worry, it's not COVID. Do you think we've had a shift in the way we treat sickness in our society?
Look, I think there's always been one of the difficult things, telling people to stay home and isolate when they're ill, because that's unnatural. People want to get together. And it's the same with influenza. And influenza, like COVID, you can transmit the disease before you have symptoms. So it's always a tricky one trying to get that message across to the public.
And do you think the message has changed or shifted or has perhaps sunk in during the pandemic?
Well, I think it's taught us that isolation and quarantining can work. So hopefully that lesson will strike a balance with people when they do run into influenza in the coming season.